Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Roll Call. For those of you that are new to Roll Call is when the police officers get together in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, right before their shift starts. They get their assignments from the sergeant. And if you want a pop culture reference, no better than Hill Street Blues, right? So be careful out there. So we have everyone's favorite retired NYPD detective with us, Mike Alcazar. Mike, welcome back to the show. Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning, everybody.
Yep. So there's a lot of things going on, but I did get the shirt, so I didn't get a chance to mention this the other day. And I also got my coffee mug.
Yo.
So the link is in the community section from a couple of days ago. I had on Mike Safrick the other day, Mark Safrick, for a retired FBI agent. Mike, this guy was unbelievable. He was phenomenal. He had everybody so enthralled that I couldn't get a chance to say anything. I was wearing the shirt, and people asking me in the chat, but I couldn't interrupt him. This guy was absolutely phenomenal. So, so a lot of things going on. Let's start off quickly. Let's just shoot over to Kansas because we're going to just talk briefly about this. They arrested the fifth guy, this guy Paul Grice, and it just goes to show you about how they put this together. They didn't say how they came about it, but they did say they did mention something about evidence at the scene. So I'm assuming fingerprints or something else led them to this guy. But he's confessed.
Well, that's good. That's good. Maybe he's the guy that's gonna really cooperate and nail the mastermind. So we always suspected there was a fifth person, right?
Right. And, as I was watching the news coverage last night about it, people asking, why do people still talk to the police? Even what do you call, I mean, we've said this for years, right, Mike? I mean, why do people talk to the cops?
Yeah, bad guys. Bad guys think they're smarter, right? And they think they can justify their actions somehow. So even with Miranda rights read, they still want to cooperate. Thank goodness we rely again heavily on how dumb criminals are. So I don't think
Yeah.
that's going away anytime soon.
No. And it just goes to show you, too, that, even with all these, like you said, all of these things in place, the police are still going to do that. So they kind of intimated at a press conference that that case wasn't done, but now I think they pretty much said that they're pretty much solid that there are no other people out there. So I think that we're just still waiting on to find out the cause of death. They still kept that very close to the vest, and I guess because it's probably disturbing in so many different levels, and they're just holding back. Eventually, it's going to come out.
Yeah, with what they recovered, we can only imagine what these poor women went through. It had to be a horrible, horrible death.
Yeah, it's it's a shame what's going on over there. So let's take another shot up north in the Sade Robinson case. I made the thumbnail specifically today pink because that was Sade's favorite color. So I figured I would just make a thumbnail in memory of this poor young girl. I mean, 19 years old. This 33-year-old guy's in custody. They did the search of his house, Mike, and they find all kinds of blood that doesn't come back to Sade. So this kind of opens up Pandora's box. So they found all this blood and craziness that's happening in this house, and you know, I know where it leads me, but where would that lead you, Mike?
Yeah, like we suspected. I think we alluded to it that this might be this guy's not first time, right? He might have had other victims. Um, I mean, is it possible he didn't kill anybody else? Maybe he injured somebody else down in his, in his basement. Possibility he could have killed somebody else, but they're gonna test that DNA and gonna find out who that blood belongs to, and find out, who the other potential victims are. So a big twist in this case for sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard the authorities, the police or the district attorney or anybody make a statement. Maybe you did, or maybe somebody else has, saying that anybody who's dated this guy, give us a call, right? I mean, even because if they're alive, we want to talk to them in regards to what this guy was up to, because there's allegations that he had this sex dungeon in his basement, right? So all these crazy trapeze things and everything else that goes on, and of course you can never anticipate what neighbors are going to say. Well, the guy's like, "Oh, he had curtains up so nobody could see in." Yeah, we all do. We all have curtains up in our house so you can't see what's going on in there. So I don't find that unusual at all.
I think it's important that we stress that people, when they experience some kind of a crime, that they should report it. And I think this is the perfect case to discuss. Like, we've recently had the women getting punched in the face in New York City. They're not reporting it, and if they don't report it, we don't have a criminal complaint on it. And it might be the case with this guy. Think about recently with the Harvey Weinstein case, right?
Oh, God, yeah, we're going to
They
get into
recently
that.
threw his conviction out because they went into cases that he wasn't charged with, maybe because these women didn't report it. So, that's something that we have to keep in mind, especially for victims, that you have to report the crime. You have to document it. No matter how frivolous, or no matter if you don't think that the police are going to do anything about it, you have to report it. You have to rely on the criminal justice system to follow through.
Right. And in many circumstances, you don't even have to report it to the police, right? If you go to the hospital, they can take a kit for you and everything else and put it on the side. You can still remain anonymous, but at least gather that evidence and be able to keep it aside so that maybe way down the road you change your mind or something like this happens and you say, this was the guy. Now, all of a sudden, you have that evidence in a refrigerator somewhere. It's really important that you do so. And then also take care of your own mental health and everything else that goes along with that, and seek that help. We're going to circle back to that Harvey Weinstein thing later on in the show, because that's a big deal too. But with this guy here, the evidence they have against him, I mean, the video surveillance of him inside that bus, I mean, they have eyewitness pointing him with the description about setting the car on fire.
Mm.
And if we're not finding any evidence in the house, listen, it had to happen in the vehicle, right? And he set the vehicle on fire. There was some remnants of clothes and stuff that were found in that burned out car. So I think that car becomes the focus of this investigation, because they have him on the disposing of the body and the vehicle. They have his cell phone records. I mean, when you look at that entire circle that they put together, the cops did a great job. Still very circumstantial, though.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, if he did it in the vehicle, I'm assuming the vehicle, if he did it in the vehicle, it had to be in his driveway, right?
Driveway.
Or garage. So there could possibly be DNA evidence in the driveway or in the garage or wherever. And I think you mentioned before that they recovered some tools, some cutting instruments. Yeah, absolutely, it makes sense. It would absolutely make sense that he did it in the car. That's why he lit it on fire. It's unusual that he drove it out in public and lit it on fire. Careful again, stupidity of criminals, and maybe not so carefully planned out. Maybe panicked. So
yes, Buttercup as eyewitness saw him set the car on fire. Yes, that's how someone saw him set the car on fire, called 911. And then we've talked about this before, Mike. I mean, perpetrators who set things on fire, the police and the fire department are going to come within minutes. It just doesn't make any sense, but they do this. But here's the other thing that I haven't heard yet, and they have him on video leaving the fire scene, getting on a bus, and going back towards home. Now they have the video surveillance of him and Sade in the restaurant. I'd like to know if the clothes that he is wearing in the bus are the same clothes that he was wearing in the restaurant, because that will tell another tale.
was there video surveillance in the bus? Did they
Yes.
recover in the bus? Really?
In
Okay,
the bus, good. Yep. They have a great shot of him in the bus, unequivocally him. They have his full face. He had a hood over his face, whatever, but it's unequivocally him. And they do have video surveillance of the restaurant. So I need to know, but not necessarily, you know what I'm saying? I'd like to know if it matches what he was wearing, because if he did this heinous act, there's no way that he didn't get himself full of forensic evidence and blood and everything else that goes along, that he'd have to change. And stepping, like you said, stepping outside of his car, if it happens in her car, they had to step out of the car. There's a good possibility it's in the driveway or the garage. He had to get a change of clothes. All of these different things that run through my mind. You know,
Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
doing
his
this,
clothes. Yeah, his clothes, his hair. If there was blood in the driveway, did he hose it down? They have to change, check like the sewer line to see if there's blood in there. All kinds of things come into my mind when you talk about him getting on the bus. And yeah, definitely they got to locate his clothes. The bus might have blood on it. I know it's a public transportation, and
yeah.
it might have been disturbed, but there's still a possibility that there's blood DNA evidence on that bus.
Yep. Well, Sarah asks, "Are you troubled by the blood in his that wasn't in the place in Sade's?" Yes, of course. I mean, there's no link to her being in that house, and that's why we're trying to figure out where else he could be. According to the cell phone records, they're at that location or in around that location for over 3 hours. So there's a long time, a lot of things happening at that moment that we are unaware of, and we're just trying to piece that together in regards
And
to.
her blood might not be there, right? But her hair and fibers and everything else might be inside the house. We don't know. Was there a sign of a struggle inside the house, right? So we're just assuming, we're just guessing. We don't really have any information. How was she,
Cause of death.
victimized
Right.
in the house? I don't want to use the wrong word. I don't want you to
Yeah.
get flagged on YouTube. So
The cause of death. We don't know what the cause of death is.
yeah.
Now, here's the interesting part of this. So I take this, of course, step further, and I went to the Murder Accountability Project. With full disclosure, I am a board member of the Murder Accountability Project, so I use their website, and everybody can use it. It's free. It's open source. It's every homicide that has ever happened in the United States, dating back into 1967, I think. Now, anyway, I did an open search in Milwaukee, and I went for just open cases, and then I toggled the switch just females. So I found 50 the last 5 years. There are 53 open homicides in Milwaukee. Now, just Milwaukee, right? Because there's was it Kenosha, there's Washington County, there's a lot of counties that surround it that would just add numbers that would just be absolutely too big, right? So, like, you always start off small, right? That whole throw the pebble in the lake, start off small and then go out. So I just started at Milwaukee. So 53 open homicides in Milwaukee alone against females.
Wow.
And they ranged in age, though. So from 11 to 64 it was. So then you start narrowing it down. I narrowed it down to about 22, I think it was, homicides that involve teenagers, because remember, Sade was 19. So I went as low as 17, and I went into the 30s, 34, because he's 33, right? Or something like that. So I went into that kind of, and there's one in there with a description of the perpetrator, and the perpetrator is a male white, and the female is black. And I went through all the races too, because Sade was black, that doesn't mean that he didn't do this to a white person or an Asian person or what have you. So you have to kind of open up your horizons a little bit on that. But this is what I want to. This is what I'm hoping that Milwaukee is doing, right? Pulling out those old homicides, pulling out all the missing persons case. I mean, I started looking through those missing persons cases on the website, Mike. Oh my God, how many there are in Milwaukee?
Yeah, that's going to be challenging for sure. They're going to have to revisit those cases if there was no closure. Maybe re-interview victims and witnesses. Perhaps look at other evidence, DNA evidence that they may have recovered. So, especially if I don't know how big that agency is. If it's small, they might need some help. So.
Well, they had some problems up there a few years ago, and with Kenosha and all the other things, and I think they've fell victim to the defund the police movement also, and I think they're very understaffed and doing things. If one of the mods in the room, if they could put in the murderdata.org, the www.murderdata.org, that's the Murder Accountability Project, and if I had on Thomas Hargrove, if you remember a few months ago, he is the CEO and chairman of that, and you can look for some of these things yourself. One of the things I wanted to do on our channel, Mike, is not only educate people, but also give them the tools that they can do some of these things on their own, because everybody kind of says, well, what do we do? What do we do? It's a great place to start. But Mike, if you were running this investigation now, let's say you're the case detective on this thing, you find out that your victim that you're looking at now, his blood is not in there. What's your next kind of steps?
Well, hopefully they made the crime scene as big as possible so that nothing is contaminated. Um, yeah, I would definitely look for where his clothing, if he in fact he did change his clothing, where his clothing is. Maybe he threw it in the trash. We had a case in Boston where the guy, threw away his clothes somewhere else. So maybe look for any kind of like sanitation facility where he might have discarded his clothing. Um, yeah, you have to look everywhere. Yeah, definitely canvas for more video if they didn't do that already. Um, See where he traveled that day, right? For the potential for him to discard any kind of evidence. Uh, yeah. What else? Is there anything else?
Well, the victim had on her cell phone this app, something 360, which was kind of interesting, and it allows not only it's kind of like if Apple has this, like where your friends are kind of thing. But this one is an app called 360, and it's you can tie it into all your friends. And this is what happened. The friend was giving the police the information about where her phone was located. And I thought that was, phenomenal. A little creepy. I don't know if I want people tracking my every movement, but you know what? If you have kids and teenagers and they're
Yeah.
going out on dates, maybe a specific events that they're going on, maybe this is something that you want to have, even have your son or daughter share with a friend. Maybe they're uncomfortable sharing with their parents, understandably, but maybe share it with a friend because I think the friend not only is the one that reported her missing that didn't show up to work, but also provided a lot of the clues for the police to try to zone in on where the remains of Sade were located.
Yeah, I've heard of that app before. Yeah, a lot of parents use that app to keep track of their kids. It's not a bad idea, right? And if you're willing and comfortable enough to share it with friends and family, especially if you're, living alone, perhaps it's not crazy in this current,
No.
atmosphere. It might be something that young people need to utilize. God forbid something happens.
Yeah, listen, I'm all for certain things, right? So if you're meeting people, via an app, or you're dating and stuff like that, and I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 19 or you're 40. I mean, we've seen this happen time and time again. It was just another one recently where the guy met the girl online and murdered her the same night. Not even this case; it was another similar case somewhere else. And it's just, it's mind-boggling that you deal with this. And for all intents and purposes, Mike, Sade does everything that you're supposed to do on a first date, right? I mean, you meet in a public place. They released the text messages now, and it kind of like as you read them, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback these things, but as you're reading them, you can see how this Max guy kind of manipulated her and picking the places that he wanted to do and what was going on here. And that could be a little concerning and a little controlling behavior that he showed, within those text messages. That's just me
That
reading
could
into it, though.
that could be his MO, right? For potential other victims. Maybe other people will come out and say, yeah, that's exactly what he did. He picked this place and brought me back to his house. Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there is another girl that came forward that said that he wanted her to check out the basement. She's like, "No." I'm like, "Good move." Yeah,
Yeah.
listen, folks, if somebody comes in, you meet them for the first time, say, "Hey, would you like to go into the basement?" The answer is no. I'm not a big fan of going into anybody's house on the first date anyway. You don't know what's going on. But Ashley just gifted 5 memberships. Ashley, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Ashley's been awesome to me all along. She's been really helping support this channel, so I appreciate that.
And poor Sade, right? Maybe that's what happened. Maybe they were in the house and maybe he did the same thing. Maybe he wanted to get her in the basement. And maybe at that point, that's when she fought for her life. And sadly, bad turn of events. And yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious like, if there's going to be any kind of like defensive wounds. I guess they would have said that, or maybe they wouldn't. On the
yeah.
perp, right? On his fingernails, or on her fingernails, in his hair, her hair. It's going to be, once they recover her missing parts. So
Yeah, the big thing to me is they to find her skull. That's what they're missing, and the family wants it because they said bury her whole. I get it, but from the investigative standpoint, when I look at all those 53 open homicides, they're all gunshot wounds. And nobody's reported anything, hearing anything like a gunshot wound, this and
mm,
that, but it could be muffled in a car too. People, and I don't know the exact crime in the area, but it could be commonplace that you hear gunshots. So it's to me that'd be just a little interesting thing, but more than likely when you're dealing with this kind of boyfriend girlfriend relationship, you're thinking of asphyxia or strangulation or something like that. But
yeah.
I'd like to know more, and that could be the reason why we can't find certain parts either.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I initially thought maybe it was strangulation too, but you made a good point that yeah, a lot of these domestic this homicides occur with gunshots. So you're right. Shots fired might be just a common occurrence in that area, and nobody calls it in. We have lots of neighborhoods in Brooklyn where it's an everyday occurrence. Shots fired, no one bothers. And again, report it, people. You have to make a
Yeah.
report so we know about it. So
I remember asking somebody, "Hey, listen, did anything unusual happen last night?" They're like, "No." They're like,
yeah,
"No." I'm like,
yeah,
"5 people got shot outside your door, whatever." He's like, "Dude, this is Brownsville. It happens all the time."
yeah,
And you're like, kind of like, wow, So yeah, you have
yeah.
to figure out how to answer questions. Bernie Heaven with the super sticker. Thank you very much, Bernie. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a little concerned that her evidence hasn't been found, and all his hair, right? You'd figure
Yeah,
that we'd find some, I'm just a little jealous, everybody, right? So he's got all this hair,
and his
nothing on,
beard.
yeah, and nothing on the, I want hopefully that they found some. Listen, we don't know what they found because they haven't
Yeah,
told us, but I'm assuming there's a good possibility we have that Edmonds Locard's exchange principle, right? The theory of
yeah,
transfer between two individuals, and you have that much hair. I doubt you could, and especially if it's a struggle. I doubt
right.
you're gonna not leave some of that hair behind.
For sure, 100%. Again, we don't know what they have. They
No.
are keeping their cards close to their vest. So, one day soon, hopefully, it will be revealed that they have all this information. So,
So Buttercup, can they find cause of death if not the whole body? Well, not necessarily, right? If the injury happens to the head or the neck area, for the strangulation or the asphyxia or a gunshot wound or blunt force trauma, right? There's a laceration.
yeah,
You won't be able to tell that. And there's another little thing that nobody's really mentioning is that there's going to be a toxicology report on what the remains that they do have because was something slipped in her drink, right?
yeah,
So she makes a Snapchat message, the last kind of information that gets sent from Sade's phone. She sends it to a friend, like, "Oh, everything's kind of going okay, whatever. We're going somewhere else." And then that was the last time that there was any information sent from her phone. But the interesting part of that is to once again social media playing a big role in this. But the timeline is that the police have put together has been phenomenal, and it's based on video surveillance, internet records, and cell phone records over and over again, Mike.
yeah, yeah. They did a good job. They did a good job making the arrest, and a good job by the witnesses that reported it. The friends and witnesses, and then the person that reported the fire. So we just gotta try to locate the rest of Sade's remains and make a stronger case to prosecute this guy.
Yeah, well, if they don't find other evidence, whatever, it's gonna get rough. If you're just joining us now, nearly 200 people just entered the room. We're speaking with retired Detective Michael Alcazar. This is roll call. Thank you very much, and Dan D'Amico. Thank you very much for that super sticker. I really appreciate that. We are just wrapping up the investigation of what we think is going on with the Sade Robinson. Remember, we're not privy to any information. Call it, some people say you're speculating and this and that. We're not speculating per se. We're just talking from experience about cases that we've had that are similar and that where investigators could be going and giving some insight into what that is happening. We just hope that they find the rest of her remains for not only for the family, but I think it's really important for the investigation.
Yep, for sure. This is what investigators do, folks. We just come up with theories and we see what is working, what's viable that we can work with. That's why we have supervisors that will guide us along, like Joe, and then we proceed with the investigation.
All right, so hope ain't fear. If her blood wasn't found in the house, where would he dismember her? In the car, in the backyard? Yeah, that's the question. I mean, and it wasn't a professional job. They did say there was lots of hacking and saw marks. So and listen, I've spent a lot of time at the medical examiner's office talking to the pathologist, and I've always asked this question, like, how easy is it for somebody? She says, well, if you're a doctor, it's pretty easy because you know exactly what joints to cut and what ligatures that you could do. But for the average person, I've been told over and over again, it's not an easy task, specifically the head because
Oh,
it's attached, to the vertebrae, and you have to know how to do so. It also gives you a little insight onto the perpetrator themselves about what kind of skill that they have.
oh man, I'm sure just like most of your viewers, I'm just picturing this graphic. It's horrible. This poor child, it's just
And the
terrible.
parents have to
I'm a
hear,
lack of words.
yeah, and the mother's got to hear it.
Oh
Cake
no.
Cakes Boo, is it true? I heard a grave was in his yard. Yeah, that's just one of the rumors. Cakes Boo, I almost called her Cakesborough. Uh, there's a lot of rumors and stuff going online. And we saw with the Riley Strain case, that poor kid that ended up in the river in Nashville. A lot of misinformation out there too. A lot of different things. So, we're going to avoid some of that stuff for sure. There's lots of different things that have been, spoken about, but I think that the next move for the police concentrate on the missing persons and the old homicide cases and see if you can track down the rest of her remains and see what you could do. And maybe he'll talk. Maybe he'll, maybe he's got a lot to lose at this point. But he's got a pretty high-powered lawyer. I heard his parents or his father was wealthy or something like that. So this is going to be an interesting case here moving forward.
So no blood in the house. Cakes Boo brings up a good point. There's a possibility he could have dismembered her in the yard, right? Because it just doesn't seem feasible to do it in the car in such a small, confined space. I don't know if he's got a
Yep.
garage. So maybe they are ruling out the house, but maybe they'll find it, DNA evidence in the yard, in the garage, on the
Yep.
driveway. There's always that possibility that we just don't know anything about yet.
No, we don't, of course. And like I said, in the neighbors, nobody's really given a bird's eye view of of his house, and if neighbors could see it. I mean, neighbors were already nosy, right? They say, "Oh yeah, he always had his curtains up." So to do something in your backyard like this, whatever power tools or what have you, or saw noises in the middle of the night, I think might have caused some alarm there. But you know, uh, rescue puppy had mentioned a storage unit. Well, we don't know, but his that vehicle or his cell phones and everything, put them at the house for 3 hours.
Mm,
So I don't know if there's any movement there, right? Yes, he could have left his cell phone there and transferred the body somewhere else. So, steel guitar says, didn't he have a secret room? No, the basement is allegedly to be this dungeon, so to speak. We don't know for sure exactly what transpires, but listen, the police have a lot to go uncover still about this because if they go into this with they've already given him a murder charge, and if they can't find any physical evidence of him actually murdering her, and we're down to unlawful disposing of a body or dismemberment of a corpse, and those are really low level felonies.
yeah. Yeah, it's a daunting case. They're gonna painstakingly collect the evidence and process it. So again, we're not privy to a lot of the information they
Yep.
already have. They might be very well be working on it. So again, making it for a strong prosecution. So time will tell.
Rochella sounds like a bit like Neighbors by Rex Sherman. Saw and heard nothing, and that gives us our segue, Rachella, thank you, because now we're going to get back into what's going on in Suffolk County. Just when you thought things would calm down, Mike, right? You don't hear anything. People are complaining. We haven't heard anything new. The last 3 days now, Suffolk County, Nassau County, State Police, NYPD have descended upon Manorville again and with cadaver dogs, and they are searching a vast area. And boy, oh boy, I mean, there's a couple of things to break down in this. But Mike, when you first heard it, what was your first thought when you heard that breaking news the other day?
My first thought was did they get a tip? Did they get a lead? Then I thought, is Rex cooperating? Highly unlikely, but possible.
Highly,
Did he make a statement?
sure.
Or did they ever stop searching the areas? Maybe they've been searching all along, and I'm thinking maybe they recovered a body part and they said, wait, and then they tested it. Maybe the DNA was linked to Gilgo. I said, let's go. We found something. Let's go back in there. Those were my first initial thoughts. You?
Yeah, those are all likely scenarios. The second one with Rex talking, whatever, I find that one probably not good because I don't think his lawyer's going to say anything because that'll just sink him for the other 4 cases for sure. So, but let's break this down. So not only did they have the cadaver dogs from all these agencies, but they also had helicopters out. They're at a tough time right now because the leaves and the foliage are starting to come in, so it's difficult to see. Now you got all the poison ivy and thorn bushes and everything else in full
Mm,
bloom out there. But what I did like to see, and people already always know that possible quiz questions that come out of these things. We said when you're doing a big, huge crime scene, they break it up into zones or quadrants, and that's exactly what they did here. They broke it up into 4 zones. They had Nassau and Suffolk, the state police, and NYPD. Each one had their own zone, and they were working independently of each other, doing the searches with the dogs. And it's difficult to do like a strip line search with dogs, right? Because dogs don't walk in straight lines. They're just all over the place. And from what we saw on the video, the police had just released the dogs and they let the dogs roam free within these zones, looking
mm.
to see if they can find anything, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, because it's so vast, right, Joe? I mean, they released them, but I'm sure they release them only to certain segments of the park, right? They still have to control the search. That park is humongous, right?
Yeah, it's big.
Uh, and and the dogs are gonna sniff out everything, uh, animal carcass. I think you said it. I said it in an interview too. They could also uncover other cadaver parts from unrelated cases.
Yep,
Manorville is known to be notorious to be a dumping
dumping
ground
ground.
for bodies. It's insane. So I think you said I said you they might uncover cases that has nothing to do with Gilgo, and now
Yep.
you're gonna have to work on that, right? So oh my God,
Well,
tremendous, tremendous.
I want to get back to that statement because it's a really good one. But what I like about it, Mike, is that it shows that they're willing, based on whether a lead or what have you, that they're willing to uncover additional remains, which is unusual for a police department because you own those now. You find a body, now it's
Yep.
another investigation, and as you said, Mike, we don't know. There's been a lot of bodies found out in Manorville. That, of course, every time they said, "Oh, we found a male body out there," they found a number of people that they deemed a suicide, unknown, undetermined causes of death. That and in males specifically. So there's been incidents where people have gone out there and unfortunately taken their own lives, and then there have been people out there who were victimized by someone else. And there's been a number of those cases over the years. I don't know if Raul's in the room today, but he could probably tell us exactly how many cases are open out of that Manorville. But this covers not just Manorville, but covers the Pine Barrens, which is this huge forest out in protected lands out on Long Island. And Peter Pranzo just said, yes, very wooded area. Yeah, it's a really big place. And you can't run these cadaver dogs all day long. They have to have a break. They got to have a long break in between searches because, like everything else, they get tired too.
Yeah, a credit to the leadership in Suffolk County too, right? That they're opening this case and investigating it, and I mean, possibly opening up other cases, right? It seems like it's gone it seems like the previous administration dropped the ball. Again, credit to Rodney Harrison for reopening the case and willing to undertake this. So I've seen a lot of people commenting on how Suffolk County just dropped the ball on this in the previous administration and all the controversy. So yeah, let's just get it done, take care of it, see what we recover and investigate these cases.
Yeah, this seems to be more of controlled and run by the district attorney's office, which could
Yeah.
because they had a couple of reporters saying, we asked the Suffolk County Police Department for a comment, and they had directed us to the district attorney's office. So I think that's the clue about where this information came from. And we still know that the district attorney is still conducting secret grand juries. So he's been doing this all along, and maybe something has come out in one of those that could be rather interesting or telling. So there's a lot of working parts here because you have 2 victims that were found both in Manorville and on Gilgo, right? Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor. We're talking over
Mm.
20 years ago. Their remains were found in Manorville along the path, where people would walk their dogs and jog and stuff like that. The bodies were left out and pretty much, so the torsos were left out and pretty much open. Nobody tried to hide anything. One of them, I don't remember if it was, it might have been Valerie Max, but there was almost wrapped in plastic. There was some sort of cover up with her remains, which is interesting, right, Mike? Because you can have an opportunity to trap some forensic evidence like we've seen in some of the other Gilgo cases.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting how Mac and Tail is, parts were found in Manorville, and then other parts were found by Gilgo Beach. So, how did that happen? Like, what was the killer? I know you have thoughts on this. I'm just pitching. I'm just
Yeah.
throwing it out there for you to dunk.
Well, yeah. I actually was on Law and Crime last night discussing this, and actually Josh Zeman too, who is always on our show. I talk to Josh almost on a daily basis these days,
Mhm.
but we were both on that, and they asked me about the single killer or the multiple killer, and I said from the very beginning, before Rex was even arrested, I said it was one killer whose this MO has changed because of technology. Some people kind of get swayed by that, and some people don't, which is fine, right? I mean, do I know? No. People asked me for my opinion, so I gave it to them. And if it's interesting, Mike, because they have somebody now in custody, right? Rex Yearman in custody for 4 of them. We have ties not only to Manorville, but you have Peaches from Hempstead Lake Park. You have Karen Vagata at Jones Beach. I mean, in Nassau County, so you have Nassau, you have Upper Suffolk and Manorville, and then you have Gilgo, and everything all roads lead to Rome. In this case, all body parts lead to Gilgo. I don't find that as a coincidence. I mean, and cops don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah, I think
But
both you and Josh made a good point that his MO might have changed because he got away with it for so many years. Ehrman's not exactly the picture of body fitness. Maybe he got lazy. He figured he didn't have to dismember bodies. He just drag them, wrap them up, and he got anything could happen. He got away with it so long. He figured he'd never get caught. So yeah, absolutely. He changed his MO. He changed the way he took care of the body. So
yeah, and then specifically, and I kind of alluded to that earlier about when I was, discussing these with MEs, and they tell you how difficult it is to dismember a body.
mm,
For somebody who's done it twice or 3 times or 4 times, might just say this is just too much work, too much time, and I just need to dispose of the body as quick as I can.
yeah, I agree. I agree.
The longer they're with this this the remains, the higher likelihood they're going to get caught. And people say, well, can you give me an example of that? And I say, yeah, Joel Rifkin, right? He was stopped for a traffic infraction by state police on Southern State Parkway, and in the body of his truck are bodies. So, or a body, because he was carrying it around, I guess, looking for a place to dump it, and he didn't have it, and he got caught with it, right? So the longer you are in possession of this, the likelihood you're going to be found out, whether it's from a simple traffic stop or not. And that's exactly what happens here. So Brooklyn rules. Do you think the wife will be charged? Yeah, this is like the $1 million question in regards to Ace or Eller. The district attorney and the police have been pretty adamant about her not being involved in anything. And I say, Brooklyn, if they find evidence of her involvement or anything like that, believe me, I think they'll turn on her in a dime. And I just don't think that the evidence is there. And it's just as simple as that. And like I said, right, Mike? I mean, we don't make, oh, well, it's the wife. She's been through a lot. We're not going to arrest her. No, let the district attorney deal with that, right? You have probable cause. You make the arrest and let the district attorney do that. And I'm telling you right now, just from what I've seen with Ray Tierney, I don't think he's going to shy away from anything in regards to
Yeah,
you put something in front of him.
yeah, I agree. I'm sure they've investigated that. They're investigating that currently, and if they have any kind of PC probable cause to arrest her, they will, or charge her, they will. We're not the only ones suspecting her. I know I've suspected her of how could you not know this? How could you not know what your husband's into? His actions, his disappearance. So I'm sure they have absolutely considered that also.
Jennifer says she's trying to get invested in the case, but for some reason she's having a hard time. Jennifer, and probably the reason why you're having that hard time is because there are so many victims and so many different locations that it's kind of tough to do that. Irene, yes, the evidence is not there. Apparently, it's not. Like I said, if they did, they would have taken her into custody immediately. We learned from not too long ago that the night that Rex was arrested, when the police went to the house, she voluntarily gave up a DNA exemplar, a buccal swab, in regards to that, and that's with her lawyer. So, she's cooperated from the beginning, giving up her DNA. Yeah, does that mean that she's innocent of anything? No, but it also gives you the opportunity to say that she's been so cooperative and so confident that she's not involved, that she was willing to give up her DNA. Listen, you don't have to like her personally. She's, she came off as very incorrigible, right? Rightly so in so many respects, right? People walking all over your lawn and your house and poking at you, kind of thing. I think any one of us would have been upset about that.
And there's also the potential that she could also be a victim too, right? She might be a victim of this whole thing. She could be deathly afraid of this Yerman. So,
Right.
it's always a
It, it's,
possibility.
it is, right? So if you're just tuning in now, 225 people are into the room. We're with retired Detective Michael J. Alcazar.
Oh,
Welcome,
you threw my
everybody.
initial in there.
Yes, Michael J. Alcazar. Well, it's hard to forget that name because it's the same as mine. So, in regards to that, but if you're just tuning in now, we were just discussing the Long Island serial killer case, shaping up what's happening in Manorville. Well, hopefully today, Mike. Like I said, this is day 4. I think they they haven't held a presser. They haven't made any public statements. The district attorney says we don't um, make statements about ongoing investigations or something like that. And then he also said, we will make a statement when the time comes. So it is, maybe there is, something more to this. Maybe he's going to tell us exactly why this happened, because they're spending a fortune out there, right? They're spending a lot of money. This had to be some hell of a tip in order to put together something like they did.
Undoubtedly, they must have a lot of information for them to use all those resources. So they're completely invested in it, and hopefully they've recovered what they're looking for, and hopefully it's to help prosecute whoever it is, Yerman, whatever information they can yield.
Snaggle Mama says, "Are they still out there?" Yeah, according to Newsday this morning, they were back out there. I haven't personally observed this, so I don't know for sure. I'm just going by what the news is saying. But it's an interesting little tidbit that we're dealing with in regards to this case now, all of a sudden. But there's one thing that, Mike, if I was doing this, because I've done this with the cold case squad when I was in the Bronx, and in other boroughs too, managing their cases. When you're undertaking a scene like this and you're looking for human remains, two things I would have had already at the scene to avoid other questions, and that would have been the medical examiner's vehicle or representative, right? A medical legal death investigator, the MLIs, which New York has, and the anthropologist, right? Because you run the risk now, like we saw with the search warrants in the storage facility, where now you reach out to the ME and now you respond to the scene with all these media people watching. Boy, you're asking for huge problems for you in regards to that from the investigative standpoint.
Yeah, it's like when we're interviewing somebody in the box, then all of a sudden you start writing stuff down instead of writing all along, right? It's a big hint that, oh, we just discovered something. So I agree. They should have been on the scene right away. So there's no big news about it, or at least it will go undercover.
Right, because if they're already there,
Right.
it's no big deal, right? They were there before. So people say, well, then they knew that they were looking for bodies. I mean, they got cadaver dogs everywhere. That's all they're looking for, right? That's all they're looking for is a clandestine grave site, somebody who's been covered with leaves, or shallow burial site. And that's basically, or even over time, where somebody might have been left out in the open and the wind blows the dirt and the leaves and all the other junk on top of it, branches have fallen down and cover it up without somebody actually doing it. But yeah, having them at the scene prior, I think, is an important thing that they did. I don't think they learned that lesson from the storage facility. Just get them out there.
Yeah, I mean, easier said than done, right, Joe? Sometimes these other agencies, hey, we don't want to go there. Call us when you find something. I don't want to sit there for 3 days. Understandably, I get it. Um, but yeah, that's the way the world works.
Yeah, but just give me one medical legal investigator with a Suffolk County OCME jacket on. That's all I need, right? I only need one person. You don't have to bring the van. You don't have to bring your crime scene van. You don't have to bring any of that stuff. But having an anthropologist is important too, because like you said before, Mike, you're going to recover animal remains.
Carcasses, yeah.
Yep, dogs, deer, stray cats, or people's missing, or possums or raccoons, you name it. They unfortunately the dog picks up decomposition. They're trained to do human decomposition, but they get, you know, sometimes they find something. I mean, I've been there, and
Yeah.
you find these bones. Remember we found this one huge bone. We were like, my God, what the hell was buried here? Ended up, the anthropologist was at the scene and say that's a cow. That's a cow bone.
Mm.
Because remember, out in Long Island, out there specifically, out in that location they were all Indian reservations back in the day, and having animals inside the camp or wherever it was, the reservation, not unusual. So you kind
Having the
of
anthropologist is a good idea too, right? Because if they do recover something that they suspect might be a body part, the anthropologist can discover, identify it, and then take more care in recovering it.
Poke bomb. Dinosaurs? Yeah, I don't know if we ever had a dinosaur found on Long Island or any remains. There might have been. I'd have to look that up. But Bernie asked a good question. Do you get inside info or tips on activity about the LISK case? Unfortunately, Bernie, sometimes I get a lot of stuff that is not for public consumption, right? So you get a lot of wild theories and those kind of things. And if I ever got something that was really valuable, I would hand it over to the Suffolk County Crime Stoppers Unit, and it's as simple as that. Or encourage the person, which I've had in the past, where people call you up with some information and say, "Listen, you really need to call this into the tip line," and I will. And if this doesn't done, whatever, I'll have to follow up with that, because you know, as a retired person, I have no authority into doing anything. So I have a responsibility if somebody gives me some information about where that information needs to go. So that's basically it there, Bernie. I hope that answers your question. So, Mike, any other final thoughts on the Suffolk County case?
Um, I think Buttercup just asked the question, why did Rex have to kill him? And for you to ask that, for us to ask that, is because we're normal human beings, right? We're working with somebody that's a psychopath. This guy doesn't have the same emotions, same feelings as us. He just, this is a power thing with him, with these psychopaths, right? It's something that they want to do, they need to do. So will never be able to understand it. For us to question it, we can't. They know the lyrics, but they don't hear the same music as us. They just do their best to fake it, to blend in with society. So
I like that analogy. Pokemon wants to know what your shirt is. We're gonna have to get him one of the True Crime with the Sarge shirts to wear. What's on your shirt, Mike?
oh, so I'm a big fan of another podcast called Bad Friends. It's with Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino, and this is one of the shirts. It's hilarious. I'm not even gonna explain it because it'll probably offend people, but
Oh boy.
he's basically making fun of Bobby Lee's mom in this shirt. So I'm a big
All
fan,
right.
but I can't wait to get
Yeah,
a Sarge shirt though.
yeah, we're gonna get you one of those, because we can't be advertising other people's stuff. Anyway, no. But it's yeah. So let's segue. So yeah, anything else on Gilgo before I segue into the Harvey Weinstein fiasco?
I'm just waiting to see what they recover, and hopefully there's a good press conference that will give us some information. I know they're not going to give all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hoping it links Taylor and Mac to Yerman. I hope that's what they find out. We'll see.
Yeah, it's something to yeah, definitely to hope for, because listen, they have a tough a road ahead of them to try to take some of these cases, because there's basically no DNA, there's no nothing. Some of them didn't even have missing persons reports, and some of them the identity we just found out not too long ago. So it is it's really important that we still find out who Asian Male is and Peaches,
Still a
because
lot.
when you know your victims, you know your potential suspects, and it's just something to to think about in that respect. But so Brooklyn rules will this answer this question: is, do you guys miss your job? Sometimes it feels like you do. Brooklyn, it's not so much you miss the job. I always say you don't miss the circus, just the clowns, right? So the people that you work with, the camaraderie, right? What's your take on that, Mike?
Yeah, after 30 years, I don't miss it at all. I do miss all my friends. Um, as you know, Joe, we have a different brand of humor, and my
Yep.
friends right now are not cops, and they just can't handle the ribbing that I give them. You know, cops are a different animal, folks. It's like a fraternity on steroids. You know, me and Joe put on our best uh, character, but behind the scenes, we are ruthless. We abuse the crap out of everybody, and I kind of miss that. I kind of miss the exchange. Um, no, I don't miss the investigative part. Thank God we have a avenue like this podcast where we can share our experience with you guys, our theories, and our expertise. And I get to hang out with my old buddy Joe. So yeah, I don't miss it. I've done it enough. There's other people out there though that when you run into a cop, Joe, and I know people will see this, when you run into a cop and all they're talking about is what they did in their job and blah blah blah, that means they didn't do enough, folks, or they didn't do it at all. So you know, there's definitely some kind of a something lacking there. So yeah, I think me and Joe
Yeah.
did enough, so we're good to go.
Yeah, and Mike and I had lunch the other day together, whatever, and I found somebody who can eat faster than I can. I forgot about that. But holy cow, he inhaled this hero. We had these nice heroes, these Italian heroes from Snaggle Mama just became a YouTube member. Thank you very much, Snaggle Mama. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so he inhaled that. Mike and I are also planning on doing something in person in the Philadelphia area. So we'll let you guys know if you're interested in joining us. We're gonna go on an Easter egg hunt. So I won't tell you all the details just yet, but we're going to go on a hunt. We're going to look for something that is part of a famous case. And if you guys want to join us, we'll let you know what the date and time is. We'll have to probably have a rain date because it will be outdoors. We're just waiting for the weather to change so that it's a nice day for sure. We don't want to be doing nothing in 30 degrees.
I just want to defend myself as fast as me eating really quick. This is a skill that cops develop because when you work in a busy house in a busy precinct, like Joe worked in the 7-3, I worked in the 7-7. These are actually bordering commands, super busy and lots of 911 calls. And most of the time we get a lunch meal, but most of the time there's so many 911 calls, you just go to job to job to job and you just pick up food. And we eat in the car and you have to eat fast. I can't.
Yep.
I know I've seen a movie where people were eating food in a car and they get a 911 call and they chuck that out the window. I'm not chucking my food out the window, folks. I am eating that as fast as humanly possible. And I still have that skill. In fact, when my son was younger, you know, I'd take him to McDonald's or something, and I say, okay, we're gonna eat it right here. I made him sit in a light with me to see. I said, tell me when there's someone blows a red light. We're not, you know, I'm in my car, but I just wanted to get the experience of what it's like to be a police officer. So we're eating there, and he's picking out the lights and stuff. So just something I shared with my son that I remember telling the story about eating fast.
Yeah, and yeah, not only eating fast, but also about the gallows humor or morgue humor, whatever you want to call it. My wife has always said to me, she says, I can always count on you for saying something inappropriate at the right time.
A 100%. I am the most inappropriate person. I will say it. What you're thinking, me and Joe will say it to your face.
Yeah, and yeah, I think Mike has experienced me saying that to a couple of bosses too, in regards to some of those things. I really didn't hold back, and it's just Jan Hill says, I never regarded work colleagues as friends, but I guess as cops, you bond working cases together, office jobs. You just do it on your own bet. Yeah, John. And Jen, it's not like you get along with everybody either, but it's ironic in policing, right? There are people that you can absolutely personality conflicts galore, but when the shit hits the fan, everybody just does whatever, and then you go back to hating each other afterwards. It's just, it's an interesting concept and dynamic in policing that you never see, but you also make lifelong friends with people that those bonds just can't be broken. And it's like one of those things you could not see somebody for 5 or 10 years. You get together and it's like you didn't even miss the beat.
Yeah. Yeah. Family forever. We have a reunion in my precinct, the 7-7 in Long Island, and we do it every year. And I try to make it. I try to make it every year. It's so important. And when you see these guys, you know, we're older now, and you're right. It's family forever. You know, you get right back into the swing of making fun of each other and talk about our past experiences and unfortunately some of the people that have passed. So it's really important. It's definitely a bond for life.
Yes. We got a couple of minutes left because I just want to talk briefly about this Harvey Weinstein absolute debacle now that's going on. They're vacating his his crimes against women. You know, the whole that was this what kicked off the whole Me Too thing. But Mike, what a horror show this is going to turn into, because now the Manhattan District Attorney is saying, "Well, we're going to look at this and see if we're going to, retry him." I could probably say that he's not.
Yeah,
Do you think they're going to retry him? I don't.
I think they should.
Oh, I do too.
I think they should. Uh, I hate to say the way they overturned this case, it's almost victim blaming, right? They're saying that he was never charged in this case. So they're leaving it on the shoulders of his past victims that never reported it. They're saying that they were willing, basically they're saying they're willing participants. This guy absolutely coerced these women with his power, with his authority. Oh God, yeah, he's a piece of crap,
Yeah.
100%.
No, and it's disturbing beyond all things, because it's not like you said. Yes, it's about victim blaming, right? Like, why did you wait so long? And there's no
Yeah,
more forensic evidence. And with the deadlines that New York put on in regards to in regards to they had to file by a certain date because the statute of limitations was expiring, is now going to probably be problematic. And then people say, well, Joe, but don't worry about it. We have now cases in California that he can be tried for. And I'm like, yeah, and you know what's going to happen? The same thing that happened in New York. I mean, now New York has set this kind of down a downward path as far as I'm concerned, and I don't know exactly, and I don't trust California and just about anything that has to do with the criminal justice system. Call me crazy, but they have shown us time and time again that they are far worse than New York in regards to punishing people lately, anyway.
yeah.
K Music Taylor just gave us that super sticker. K, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Firefighters are the same way. Yes, they are Disney nerd. The cops are always jealous of the firemen because there's no, they don't have to drive around looking for fires, right? They just wait for it to happen. Unlike the police, that's why everyone doesn't like the police, because Cakes Boo, thank you very much. Sergeant Mike, the real deal. Tell it like it is. Such an insight. So carrying victims. Thank you. Thank you, Cakes Boo. I really appreciate that. Really do. Crime and Spices, New York is off the rail for real. Yep, it is. So, Mike, it is. We have 3 minutes left of our hour of roll call. Everybody's looking to see. You have shows coming up. You got The Shaming of Jay has a show up. You got Gizzle of True Crime. She's got a bunch of things planned today. So, yeah, the Grizzlies are in full effect today, too. So you have lots of different things to watch after this show, which is kind of like nice, where we're kind of like the first ones out of the gate in the morning when we do this. So story time. What do we got?
I just want to show that because I saw Vid said story time. I just want to show this is the painting for me, and she sent it to me. How awesome is that?
There you go.
Gotta follow
Viv.
her channel.
Art with Viv. There she is. She's in the chat room. Make sure you're following her, especially if you're into art. She does some amazing things. I still can't do anything. I still can't do things beyond stick figures. So
I got a story. You mentioned about firefighters. I don't know if I ever told the story about me responding to a fire. Have I ever told that show? I'm so old, I don't remember. I tell my stories over and over again. No?
I don't think
All
so.
right, so you said we don't drive around looking for fires. Oddly enough, we were driving around in St. John's Place in Brooklyn in the 77, and me and my partner saw a fire, daylight fire happening. And I'm driving by and I see these giant flames coming out of this apartment building, out of the fire escape. And my partner at the time, Tim, I go, Tim, holy shit, look at that. So we drove over there to Sterling Avenue. Now, I've never responded to a fire in my life. This was the first and the last time, folks. I ran in there. We ran in there, ran up to the second floor. It was black. I took my flashlight out. I'm putting the flashlight on the ceiling. I said, oh my God, my flashlight's not working. I can't see anything. I look at the flashlight. It's on. That smoke, it's not like movie smoke, folks. It's not this beautiful gray. It was black. You couldn't see. So you know what you do in a fire? You drop down and crawl, right? So we eventually get into the apartment where we found the fire. My partner, Tim, is huge. Kick the door down. We find a guy. He carries them out. I go in the hallways. I'm banging on the doors. People didn't know what was going on. I ended up carrying like 2 or 3 kids with me down the stairs. And this is not a knock on firefighters, right? But apparently this is a big thing. A rescue is a big thing for them. So I'm carrying these kids down the steps. I can't breathe. I have asthma. And the look on their faces, the firefighters, they're looking at me like I just stole their candy or something. And I'm like, guys, just help me out. Just take the kids. I can't breathe. I'm not trying to do your job. I am not equipped for this. I'm wearing this polyester shirt with a vest and a gun belt, no gas mask. Long story short, we evacuated the building to the best of our ability. FD did come over and take over. And if you have ever responded to a fire, Joe, I hope you never have, or you never did. Yeah. We had to go to the hospital. They had to check our blood deep, and that was the most painful thing. If we have any nurses and doctors, they had to check our blood for any kind of smoke inhalation. If you ever seen the movie, and I always like this movie, End of Watch, there's a fire scene there which almost mimics exactly what we went through. I'd rather deal with a guy with a gun than go into a fire ever again. Much respect to firefighters. I do not want to do that unless it's my dog or my bird or my family members. I am not. You see, I said dog first. Yeah. I am not running in there. I am not running in there.
Yeah. I unfortunately, I made the same mistake. We're just on patrol. We see the fire coming out of the first floor, 3-apartment building. And my partner and I ran in there. It was the same thing. You couldn't see your hand in front of you. And then that choking smoke. And like I said, you couldn't even find the doors. So, just from constantly going to these houses, like these row houses, exactly where the rooms are. So you're running up the stairs and you're, like I said, knocking on doors. And people are actually like, what do you want? Who is it? It's the police. There's a fire. Get out. What do you mean there's a fire? Like, dude, I don't got time to argue with you. Get out. People, New Yorkers are funny. Like, what do you mean there's a fire? And then they open the door, like, oh my God, there's smoke in the hallway. Yeah, like, what do you think we're doing over here? Yeah, listen, I wanted to be a fireman originally, in the city, but they weren't hiring back when I started, about the time I did this. So yes, a couple people like the logo, like the shirts. In the community section, there's a link. If you're interested, you could get the coffee mugs and the shirts. Some of you have asked for the merchandise. It's finally available. I came through with you on that one. Mike, once again, pleasure. The hour went by quickly. You guys all have a great day, and we'll stay tuned. We'll be back next week. We'll give you guys the schedule, and we'll let you know what's going on. And thank you for all the donors and the mods helping out. This Sunday at 1:00, I have a digital forensic expert returning, Frank Thornton, who's going to break down all of the alibi stuff from the Brian Koberger case, which is going to be epic because there's a lot of venom being thrown out by the pro Koberger teams, which is fine. But mods, if you're going to be there in the room on Sunday, you're going to get a workout. So we will talk to you soon. Have a great day, everybody. Mike, hang out 1 second. All right, guys.
Bye, everybody.